Hello, my name is Kimberly Ireson. Today I'm going to be doing my presentation on Fever 103 Degrees by Sylvia Plath. I'm going to start with some biographical information on Sylvia Plath, and then I'm going to move into her poem. To begin with, she was born on October 27th, 1932 in Boston. Her parents' names were Aurelia Schober and Otto Plath. Her father died when she was 8 years old, and this led to a lot of interesting developments in her life because he was a very authoritarian figure, a very controlling man. And when he died, his death defined what Plath saw in relationships, and it also defined her poetry. The most notable poetry to come from that was her poem Daddy. Plath was a very bright young girl. She kept a journal from the time she was 11 years old. She was published in many regional magazines at a very young age. She even received her first national publication very soon after graduating high school. She was published in the Christian Science Monitor in 1950, and that being her first national publication. She would later go on to attend Smith College, where she graduated summa cum laude. She married English poet Ted Hughes in 1956. The two of them would have two children, Frida and Nicholas, and they would also have a very, very rocky marriage that would end in 1962 when Hughes had an affair and then left her. Sylvia Plath committed suicide on February 11th, 1963, and after her death, Hughes, her former husband, became her literary executor. This was a decision that was often met with a lot of controversy, as he had left. Some of her major publications include The Colossus and Other Poems, which was published in 1960. This is the only volume of Plath's poetry that was published before her death. All of her poetry that was published later was published posthumously. One of the most notable works by Sylvia Plath in general is, of course, The Bell Jar, which is her complete novel. It was published in 1963, and it details the mental breakdown of a young woman. It is a semi-autobiographical novel, as this is a lot of what she was going through towards the end of her life. She published it in the UK under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas. It wouldn't be until years later that the book was published in the US or that the book was published under the name Sylvia Plath. Some more of her famous poetry includes the collection Ariel, which was published in 1965, and the complete collected poems, which was published in 1981. For the collected poems, Plath would win the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1982. She was the first to receive this award posthumously. She also, in 1955, though, won the Glascock Prize for Poetry. So to get into Fever 103 Degrees, it's a free verse poem. It has no set rhyme scheme and no obvious pattern to it. It just moves through it. It helps the tone even. As the tone is dark, it's confused. There's a lethargic sense to it as this speaker has this fever and is moving through this process. A good example for how this tone can become feverish is the way they describe being afraid. When they say, love, love, the low smoke rolls from me like Isidora's scarves. I'm in a fright, one scarf will catch an anchor in the wheel. This has a reference to the death of Isadora Duncan, who was a dancer. She was known for wearing very long scarves, and she died in a freak accident when a car wheel caught one of her scarves and probably strangled her to death. So to describe this as sort of a scarf coming around her helps to express this sense of fear, but there's also ways that we can look at the lethargic side that's coming through in the poem, such as the very beginning, when it says, the tongues of hell are dull. Dull as the triple tongues of dull, fat Cerberus who wheezes at the gate. This is not the way we tend to think of this mythological creature, who is known to be the guardian of the gates of hell. So for her to describe him in this dull, fat, lazy state helps to relay a sense of being tired, of feeling sick. There's lots of themes that appear throughout her poem. One of them that's continuous is the idea of purity. And in some ways, we could look at the heat of the fever as being similar to purifying flames, or even the flames of hell. That's the way that some people have gone on to interpret it. It starts with the very first line saying, pure, what does it mean? And continues on in other instances where she says, I'm too pure for you or anyone, and I am a pure acetylene virgin. This is as she's working her way through the poem, which is how, again, we could see this fever as being a cleansing fire, a heat of redemption, so to speak. Something else she does throughout her poem is she often employs repetition, and this use of repetition can add to this feeling I mentioned earlier of haziness, of being in a fevered state, because she says the same words over and over and over a couple times. The first being that I mentioned at the beginning, the tongues of hell are dull. Dull is the triple tongues of dull, fat Cerberus. We see dull, dull, dull. This is not the only word she tends to repeat throughout the course of the poem. We also see this as she works her way through the poem. She says the sin, the phrase the sin, multiple times. For example, the first time she does it is in line 7, when she's talking of Cerberus licking clean the ague tendon, the sin, the tender cries. We see her mention sin again later on in the poem when she's speaking. She says, greasing the bodies of adulterers like Hiroshima ash and eating in the sin, the sin. This could be another reference to the idea of the fever working as a purification process. If we continuously see this juxtaposition of sin and purity, then we can see how they're working against each other and together through this fever dream state to whatever it is that is the final goal of this sickness. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is imagery, the imagery of being ill. Plath employs these descriptive terms and phrases to access this feeling of being ill. Even the word choices she used help to convey this idea of being sick. For example, in line 7, which I've already read, she uses the word ague. Ague itself is a word that refers to fever. It involves shivering and shaking. It is something that we all can relate to from times when we have been ill. Even the repetition I referred to earlier helps to express the feeling of confusion. Why repeat what you already know? This is a fever dream of a poem. This is a woman speaking about purification through the lens of being sick. Even the way she speaks, just in general, helps convey this feeling, this overall being of being ill. She says, darling, all night I have been flickering off, on, off, on. When you have a 103-degree fever, you are very sick. And so this beautiful way of phrasing this could refer possibly to the fading in and out of consciousness that accompanies illness, or it could just refer to this idea of a fever dream, or this idea of purification, as she's working her way towards her final goal. We see more of this imagery towards the end when she says, my selves dissolving old whore petticoats. My selves dissolving, this could be reference more again to the purification, especially with saying my old whore petticoats, as she is becoming pure through this fever fire. Her old selves are falling away. She speaks of being delicate. She speaks of being expensive. She even says, does my heat not astound you? Many of the things she says can help show readers why the speaker is having such a fever dream, really. From everything from the metaphorical, speaking of, I am too pure for you or anyone, your body hurts me as the world hurts God, to even more realistic descriptions, such as 3 days, 3 nights, lemon water, chicken, water make me wretch. There's never a moment where it seems like the speaker is not sick. The speaker is sick, the speaker is having a rough time, and this sickness, this process, she's going to come out better on the other end for it. The very last line of the poem is to paradise. When she comes out of this fever, this illness, she is on the other side. She is in paradise. She is renewed. She is pure. And that's Fever 103 Degrees by Sylvia Plath. Thank you very much.